Joining me now to react to my interview of Cardinal Gerhard Müller and some other important topics, editor-in-chief at thecatholicthing.org, member of the Papal Posse, Robert Royal. Great to see you, my friend.
Great to be with you.
Thanks for coming in. What did you take from that? I mean, I was astounded by the open-throated critiques and clarity from Cardinal Müller. I've never heard him like that.
Yeah. Look, he's a big brain to begin with, and he knows what issues are at stake and has a very, very profound, not only theological and theoretical appreciation of what's going on, but practically what's been going on in Rome. So, yeah, I mean, I consider him a friend, and I've talked with him a lot, but I think he and several other cardinals are going to have to step up, because we're starting to see a very radical set of developments in the church, not only about the synod, but as he was talking about, also within the Curia and many other issues as well. So we need more voices like that, and I think he's sort of leading the charge.
But Bob, when a cardinal sits here and tells me that a major synod we've been working on for years and watching for years, that this is a hostile takeover of the church meant to destroy the church and an abuse of the process to shift the doctrine of that church. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, well, look, you know, what you were talking about from Cardinal Gretsch, that stuff, you know, when people start talking about the Holy Spirit speaking to us, I always draw back a little bit, because it's pretty presumptuous to say that we know what the Spirit is saying. And if you remember in the Gospels, Jesus says the only sin that will not be forgiven is the sin against the Holy Spirit. And we're starting to hear cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church saying that LGBTQ, I mean, forget gay and lesbian. We used to think that was sort of an outrage, that the church was starting to move toward people who were same-sex attracted. We're way beyond that now. When you're talking about even people within that group, there are people who don't like the trans move now, queering, people who are gay and lesbian saying they're not queer, they're only same-sex attracted. This is a radical acceptance of an anthropology that goes directly against everything from the Bible. I always say, one of the first mentions of human beings is male and female, he created them. If we're going to abandon that, and we're going to say that was a too narrow understanding of what human beings are, what can't you abandon in church teaching? You could just deny everything that has come down from us from the Bible, and many do. I mean, a lot of sort of functional atheism basically comes from that quarter.
What do you make of the assemblage of participants here? I mean, there has long been this embrace, if you will, of the worldly. In fact, I would argue at times not only the searching, but the anti-Catholic have been embraced in a way that, while you reject the Catholics who believe and say, you may not use that formal old liturgy, don't do that, but, come on in with your truth. That filmmaker talking about, this is my truth. Well, who cares about your truth? Everybody's got a truth, I guess, if we use that rubric.
Look, all of us who stand up in public get criticized for one thing or another, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I look very carefully at that. If I made a mistake, did I slander somebody? I want to stand with the truth, and sometimes a critic can be helpful, but you can't take the point of view of the critic. You can't step over to the critic's, critic's side and take his view against yourself. Yeah. There has to be that fundamental. One of the things I like very much about Cardinal Müller is his constant bringing us back to we're listening to Christ. This is not a matter of politics and power within the church. The church must listen first to Christ. And yes, then we can listen to people who are of goodwill, whether inside or outside the church. But we don't just listen to every voice the way some demagogic politician claims that he's in listening sessions. Yeah. We've got things to say, as well as we've got an obligation to listen.
Yeah, and it's not something you came up with. It's something that you received through millennia. I want to talk about a couple of stories here in the United States. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, police have identified the perpetrator of, again, another attack, one of like 80 we've seen against churches and pro-life centers. This time, the Holy Family Cathedral on Wednesday. A man, Daniel Edwards, attacked a church employee with a sword. This is after he attempted to firebomb the church, and he damaged a window there. Why is the FBI taking no action here, Bob? We hear of these stories, and yet there seems to be no reaction from the federal government.
It's an outrage that with a so-called Catholic president sitting over here in the White House, that our forces of law and order are not protecting religious institutions, it almost beggars belief. It's the kind of thing that when you hear it happening in other countries, you say, well, of course in Nicaragua they do that. Right. Of course in China they do that sort of thing. But in the United States, when we allow people to do these sorts of things, firebomb a church, and in this case, we don't yet know the motivation. It's said that he had a Bible with him, so maybe he was that old American anti-Catholicism where we're not close enough to the Bible. But then we've got lots of people, feminists, pro-abortion people who hate the church and attack the church precisely because it's too close to the Bible. So we're between a rock and a hard place.
Speaking of that, in the FBI raided the home of yet another pro-life advocate, this time a man named Chet Gallagher. He and his family apparently pray and sing outside an abortion clinic in Tennessee. Last year they were singing, and apparently they were in a hallway of this building. The cops came and cited them with trespassing, but they weren't blocking access. Well, now the FBI went in, raided this family, and they're claiming they're invoking the FACE Act, which is freedom of access to abortion clinics. So, I mean, I guess if you park in the wrong spot near an abortion clinic, you could get the FBI banging on your door soon.
Look, I mean, we do have rules about public access and public spaces, and it's only right that the law enforcement people will fine you. You may find yourself in court over something that you did, okay? But in this instance, I think it's absolutely as clear as anything can possibly be that there's a message being sent out here that because we now have Roe versus Wade having been reversed, and there was sort of this tidal wave of reaction against pro-lifers, that our law enforcement agencies are. You bring a SWAT team in because a guy was singing in a lobby of a building somewhere. It beggars belief that this is happening now in the United States of America.
Right. While people who are firebombing or threatening justices, they can go about their way. It's no problem at all. Bob, we leave it there. Great to see you, my friend. If you'd like Bob's commentary, you can go to thecatholicthing.org.